The NFL Draft is just the latest piece of professional football to be sensationalized by the league's marketing team. What started off as the team's owners gathering in a modest hotel conference room has since turned into a spectacle to behold, one with plenty of fanfare to go along with it. Behind the scenes, every NFL franchise has its entire decision-making team in draft rooms, or the war room as it's often referred to, where they can carefully monitor the preceding picks and, once it's their turn on the clock, have a representative phone into the league office to make their selection official. Then, in front of thousands and thousands of fans, the franchise's newest players trek up to the stage, dons the team's jersey and cap, shakes hands with the commissioner, and smiles big for the camera. Year in and year out, the bar seems to be raised too, and the production becomes even more intricate. The host city turns into a Mardi Gras type affair, with, let's call it enthusiastic, fans stumbling around the city's streets all week. I mean, last year, Nashville had well over 600,000 people attend various draft-related activities downtown, which, by the way, more than doubled the previous record set in Dallas the year before. And while an onslaught of die-hard NFL fans might have come as a bit of a disappointment to any unsuspecting brides-to-be that were down there for bachelorette parties,
the person that's going to pay for this is my husband when I refuse to watch football the entire season. Like, no Super Bowl. No.
It was a massive success for the NFL, and a surefire go-ahead to keep investing more and more into the draft. And up until a few weeks ago, 2020 was shaping up to be another shining example of this. In fact, there was reason to believe that this year's draft could have been one of the most memorable renditions yet. The NFL spared no expense on preparing for this epic event. It was set to take place in Paradise, Nevada, to coincide with the now Las Vegas Raiders' arrival in Sin City. And it had all the works in store, featuring all of the over-the-top grandeur that we've come to associate with the great city of Las Vegas. We're talking about a massive stage at the Caesars Forum Convention Center and the draftees traveling to the podium on boats, kind of over the top. What a sight it would have been. Anyway, that is more than enough reverie at a time like this. The draft, like the rest of the world, has been turned on its head since the rampant spread of the coronavirus, and it was in very real danger of being canceled or postponed. Fortunately for football fans everywhere, the NFL found a way to make it happen, giving us a welcome distraction during a scary and uncertain time. So while we won't get to see any 6'5" behemoths trekking to Goodell on a little platform-turned boat, at least we will get something, since the NFL announced that they will be going forward with the draft. Or at the very least, it'll be a version of the draft, one that complies with CDC guidelines, of course. NFL personnel to comply with government directives and to model safe and appropriate health practices. Our staff will carry out its responsibilities in the same way, operating in separate locations outside of our offices. And this will confirm that clubs will conduct their draft operations remotely, with club personnel separately located in their homes. But what will it look like? And more importantly, could the changes actually impact the way that teams draft? In short, yes. But let's take an in-depth look at what this bizarro world, socially distancing version of the NFL draft will look like, and why there could be some unique pitfalls that the team simply could not have been prepared for. I mean, even the most basic aspects of the draft process will be vastly different this year. The ESPN telecast will still feature most of the regular draft personalities, with Trey Wingo hosting and Mel Kiper, Booger McFarland, and Louis Riddick as the analysts, offering up their takes on who they anticipate being selected and, of course, the reactions once the picks are actually made. However, instead of all of ESPN's cohort donning their best dress in ESPN's pristine studios in Bristol, the 4 of them will be at their homes, presumably trying to appear as professional as possible. And of course, the program will also feature some of the industry's top scoop guys like Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen. The draft will also be broadcast on ABC, which got into the NFL draft action for the first time in 2019. But like last year, its production will have a different focus than the ESPN coverage. Because ABC's team consists of Reese Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, and David Pollock, all who primarily work in the college football space, the broadcast will come from that perspective and focus on the human interest side of things, like what it means to the players to be living out their dreams and how it will impact their families. That sort of feel-good type of stuff, which admittedly we could all use a little of these days. Davis, who hosts College Game Day, will actually be in the studio in Bristol, and the rest of the analysts will be in their homes like the ESPN crew. It is rumored that ABC may try and recreate what they did last year in Nashville when the ABC broadcast featured an interview with pop star Taylor Swift, as well as a live music performance. Obviously, whoever gets the nod to perform this year will have to do it remotely, like we've seen so many artists doing on Instagram Live. But either way, it should add an interesting element to the draft night experience. On both telecasts, once the pick's made, the NFL plans to leverage cameras that have reportedly been distributed to all of the draft prospects so they can film their reactions from their own personal draft night locations. Similar to what we saw with Baker Mayfield back in the 2018 draft, when he was taken number 1 overall but had elected to spend the night with his friends and family instead of attending the draft in person. While this format unfortunately does take a little bit of the zest out of the night for the college kids that are getting drafted to the NFL, at least they will still get some shine on national television, and they now get to do it from the comfort of their own homes. Although I'm sure the celebrations will be a little more reserved than they traditionally have been, this is certainly better than nothing. But that is not to say that such a drastic change won't have a negative impact. The impact may be minimal on the entertainment side of things, but there could be a very real impact on how efficient and effective these teams are when it comes down to their actual selections. Consider how different sheltering in place will make the entire draft night experience for the NFL team's perspective. Take the Baltimore Ravens, a team that historically has had great draft day performances, for example. For years, the Ravens have had all their draft day operations in a top-of-the-line war room in the team's Owings Mills facility. There's a dynamic draft board which allows them to access and utilize all sorts of information, and access of seating for team officials and coaches, and of course, multiple TV monitors to watch it all unfold in front of them. Now, they will all be in completely different locations and relying on Zoom to communicate. This poses an issue for the Ravens, who, like many, rely on a handful of different execs when it comes to the evaluation process. Sure, Eric DeCosta has final say when it comes to the pick, but he still wants to be able to gain insights from the rest of the crew, especially from head coach John Harbaugh. And considering the significant amount of decisions left to be made, this is crucial. I mean, think about this. The Ravens have 9 picks in the upcoming draft, and according to DeCosta, there are still 185 draftable players they are considering. 185! That is a hell of a lot of players to be analyzing remotely. And I could certainly envision teams running into some issues in terms of getting their picks relayed to the league office on time if they're virtually debating who they're going to pick, especially if they run into any sort of technical difficulties. Harbaugh also recently expressed concern over the security of using these kind of communication methods, saying, "Every time I read something in, like, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times that talks about how messed up Zoom is, or some of these other deals, I immediately text it to our IT people." And Director of Football Administration, Nick Mateo, is one of those guys. And they assure me that we are doing everything humanly possible. While this may seem like an instance of Harbaugh strutting around in his tinfoil hat, there is a legitimate reason for concern. Knowing which players that rival teams are valuing is a huge advantage, and if a team had access to that information, they could either scoop the player up early or even dangle the potential pick in front of another team as trade fodder. Los Angeles Rams Chief Operating Officer Kevin Demoff echoed a similar sentiment to NBC Sports, saying, "Someone could hack into this Zoom interview and you're probably not going to learn a lot. Hacking into a team's draft room on Zoom is probably a lot different." And even if an NFL team wasn't maliciously targeting another team, it wouldn't be overwhelmingly surprising to see an independent hacker try and infiltrate a team's remote draft room, either for a ransom or just for the pure chaos of it all. Zoom did recently announce that it was issuing privacy reinforcements and added security measures, like passwords in waiting rooms. So hopefully, we can make it through this virtual draft without hackers having an impact on it. But with all the time that everyone has to kill now, honestly, who knows? Even if some clan of rogue internet pirates don't get their hands on the draft, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that, at least from a talent evaluation point of view, there hasn't already been a legitimate impact on the teams. Think about how extensive the pre-draft interview process is for some of these guys. Teams are typically flying guys all over, picking their brains, and really trying to get a grasp on who the players are as people. It will be interesting to see if we see that some teams are a bit apprehensive when it comes to bringing in a guy with character concerns, as they did not have a chance to fully vet them like they typically would. All in all, if you weren't planning on heading out to Vegas for the event, I think that the draft experience will be pretty similar for the fans. We will all still be able to watch, we'll get the live analysis, and now there's the added bonus of some potential added chaos. So that'll add something to the whole thing. The big losers in the whole thing are really the teams, who have been preparing all year for this. This is one of the most important investments a team makes, and now they have an added degree of difficulty for a process that gets screwed up badly all too often as it is. Needless to say, this should be a very interesting draft. Do you think the NFL should follow through with the 2020 draft, or should it be postponed or canceled? Join us in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton, and we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.